Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode on the Java tutorials program. So, in this episode, we're going to be talking about while loops. So, if you have been following along, thank you so much. Make sure to go ahead and watch the other videos if you haven't already. Like and subscribe, share the videos with your friends, things like that. So, in the last episode, we talked about for loops, and now we're going to be talking about while loops. So, what exactly is the difference between a while loop and a for loop? So let me go ahead and write the basic structure out for both loops. So first we have for loop, we got a while loop. So for a for loop, we're doing something. So with the for loop, we know how many times we're going to do something. So for instance, we're going to be doing this 10 times, 9 times. We know how many times we're going to be printing out the numbers. We know ahead of time what our max limit is. With a while loop, we're basically relying on a condition to be true or false and running the loop until we break the condition. So let's go ahead and say int I. So as you can see here, these are the difference between the for loop and the while loop. So in essence, the loop does the same thing, except in the while loop, you set your I outside the loop, and then you say, while the variable is less than 10, we're going to print out the variable, then increment by 1. Essentially, it operates the same as a for loop, except the structure behind it is a little bit different. Rather, you're basically continuing the loop until this condition is false. Whereas over here, you're doing this for 10 times. You're effectively stating it that, okay, we're going to do this for 10 times. It's the same thing over here, except you're evaluating a condition as opposed to running a counter. So let's go ahead and let's do one exercise. And the first exercise is to write for. So I want you to write a for loop and a while loop to print numbers from 1 to 100. Go ahead and pause the video here and try to do it on your own. Okay, now that you've come back, let's go ahead and start with the for loop first. So we're going to start from 1, and we're going to say less than or equal to 100. Then we're going to print I. So essentially, what this does is that we're going to go from 1 and while, see how interrelated they are? I'm using while to describe a for loop. You're going to start from 1, you're going to go up to 100, and then you're going to increment by 1 each time. So you print I, which is 1, and then you compare if 1 is less than 100, then if it is, then you increment by 1, and then you see if 2 is less than 100, and so forth. And you keep on printing that number. Now with the while loop, we start off with 1, and we go while I is less than or equal to 100. So basically, we're checking to see, okay, we're going to print out I, and then we're going to increment I by 1 so we get to the next number. Then we're going to check to see if that number is less than or equal to 100, and so forth. Now, these are two different loops, and they effectively do the same thing. The main difference between a for loop and a while loop is that, as I stated before with the while loop, you want to use it when, not in this example where there's a counter, but suppose you were to encounter something that is purely based on logic. You want to keep on doing something until you make a condition false or true. Then you use the while loop. And you don't know when that's going to happen. So that's the beauty of a while loop. You're relying on logic as opposed to a fixed counter, if that makes sense. So let's do one more exercise. Write a for loop and a while loop to print even numbers from 1 to 100. So I want you to go ahead and pause the video and try to solve this on your own. Okay, so now that you've paused the video and try to solve this on your own, let's go ahead and think about it. So we have a for loop from 1 to 100. And now we have to say if I mod 2 equals 0, we're going to print I. Now, what do we do in the while loop? We effectively just do the same thing. Now, I want you to tell me if this is right or if this is wrong. Pause the video and then think about it for a little bit. Okay, so as you can see here, we've written a for loop to print even numbers from 1 to 100. And now we're writing a while loop to print the numbers from even numbers from 1 to 100. However, this will be wrong. And what will happen is that this will be stuck in an infinite loop. Here, let's try it out. Okay, give me a sec. This is what I meant to do. Let's try this out. As you can see here, it's stuck in an infinite loop, and we have to command out of this. So Command C. So the reason why I got stuck in an infinite loop is because, okay, so you can use an if statement without brackets as long as you only have one line of code. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So this does not work because we're starting off with 1, and we're checking to see if the number mod 2 is equal to 0. Then we're going to print a number, which is what we expect, and then we increment it, given if this is true. However, we should be incrementing no matter what, because in order to get from one number to the next, we must add 1 to the previous number. So in order to make this true, all we got to do is get rid of the statement and put it outside the if statement, just like so. Oops. Give me a sec. And as you can see here, the loop works perfectly as intended. So this was a very basic introduction on the while loops. Please let me know if you would have any feedback. And thank you so much for following along. Take care and be sure to watch all the other videos and like and subscribe. Bye for now.